What's good with the YouTube of Compy's Perspective? It's your boy, Big Flacco, smashing, dashing, sliding on through. A little bit of energy, man. I hope everybody's having a grateful Monday and that you guys are all blessed, man. We're going to be touching base on an interesting topic, man. I found an appeal from a certain canal that's recent from 2021, and it goes into the details of Martin Chacon's death, a.k.a. Kung Fu, who was out there in the streets of San Jose around 2011, around that time era, under the federal faction's leadership to reestablish the regiment. Now, you're going to hear a lot of interesting names in this case, and there's been a lot of questions marks about really what happened. You know what I'm saying? This, like I said, I'm going to do a disclaimer. This all comes from the Court of Appeals. All the information that we're getting is through the investigation of officers, through testimony, and so forth. Afterwards, I'm going to address a little bit of different perspectives of things that I've gathered after, as well as another individual who stepped out from the Fed 6 years earlier, pushing that same federal agenda. So without further ado, Rojo's going to get to this. This article is entertaining the whole way through, and it has a lot of details and a lot of information. So check it out.
Yeah, the reason why we always say that, first of all, about, we're going to put out a little disclaimer and whatnot. This isn't information that we're involved in, that we're, actively participated in. We don't have firsthand knowledge. We're only going off what's written. These are court transcripts. So this is the case that's being presented and being, put against the people. So it's always a disclaimer, though, because we can't attest that this is even factual 100% ever, unless we're personally involved. That's all that is. But anyway, Chacon's murder and Villara's involvement. Issues between Chacon and the NF Street Regiment. Luis Barrios testified under a grant of immunity. Barrios was in the NF gang and an official NF member. Barrios ran the NF Street Regiment in Santa Clara County after he was released on parole following a stint in prison. Barrios intended that the gang's primary activity would be to sell methamphetamine, but the gang also committed bank robberies and assaults. Barrios testified he was currently facing approximately 35 criminal charges arising from 5 separate bank robberies. Barrios also testified that he had an extensive criminal history. He once stabbed someone and had previously been arrested for attempted murder. When he was a minor, he stole cars, guns, and robbed houses. Between the ages of 15 and 39, Barrios had been out of custody for a total of 2.5 years. Sounds familiar, man. We all been there, unfortunately. Barrios testified that he was now on the bad news list, also known as the B&L. He had initially intended to violate his parole to turn himself in, but he ended up getting arrested for the bank robberies. After Barrios' arrest for robbery, he went into protective custody. Barrios initially thought Manuel Montiel would be a good drug connection. Montiel, however, had issues with Angel and Martin. The NF began to take offense with the way Montiel was dealing with certain things, and the gang decided to have somebody kick in Montiel's door and rob him. The individuals who broke into the house left when they saw that there was children inside Montiel's house. But Montiel and a friend pursued the other members. A fight broke out and gunshots were fired. Barrios had previous conversations with Chacon. Chacon told Barrios that Angel and Chacon were trying to sell their drugs and collect money for the federal NF regiment. Barrios told Chacon that the NF did not have different regiments in Santa Clara County and that there was only one regiment that answers to Pelican Bay. Barrios also told Chacon that when Chacon did not stop saying that he was the federal NF regiment leader, he was going to get smacked. We're not talking about that, just to be clear, or killed. Barrios later spoke to Angel and told him, let Kung Fu, Chacon, that's what Chacon went by, to knock his shit off or we're going to smack him. He's going to get smacked. It's exactly how it's written. I know it sounds different. At the time, Barrios did not know that Angel and Chacon had their own personal issues. Cervantes also knew Chacon. Cervantes met Chacon sometime in February of 2012, shortly after a shooting at the Creekside Bar. Angel brought Cervantes over to Chacon's house. Cervantes recalled that the two men spoke about a robbery, and Chacon was upset because there were kids present during the robbery. Chacon told Angel that somebody's going to talk to Angel, or somebody's going to be dealt with on behalf of that situation. Later, Angel complained about how Chacon was functioning with the federal NF regiment and was not involved in the NF street regiment. Interesting. Sergeant Livingston, the infamous Sergeant Livingston strikes again, also testified about some of the issues between the gang members. Montiel used to date Chacon's baby mama. Montiel was a drug dealer and was not playing well with the NF Street Regiment, so Barrios and Angel decided to attempt to rob him. Chacon became upset because his children were at Montiel's house at the time the robbery was attempted. Chacon's murder and the aftermath of the murder. This is Cruz's testimony. Chacon was murdered on August 13, 2012. On the day that Chacon was killed, Cruz testified that he had traveled from Red Bluff to San Jose with Oaks and Lares.
Bird.
That's Big Bird. Cruz knew they were going to be buying methamphetamines. Lares also mentioned to Cruz that Chacon might be an informant, and he was investigating that allegation. During the drive from Red Bluff, Lares called Angel. The conversation sounded like a progress report to let Angel know that the men were getting close to San Jose. Cruz thought that they would be meeting Chacon, getting the methamphetamine, then leaving. When they arrived in San Jose, the men stopped at a fast food restaurant. Lares called Angel to tell him that they were in San Jose and to meet them at the restaurant. Lares told Angel that they were going to meet Chacon, and he did not want Angel to leave until after the meeting. Angel was with a friend at a time. Angel was with a friend at the time, Cervantes. Lares then called Chacon for him to come over. After he made the phone call, Lares told men that Chacon was on his way and asked Cruz if he had his money. Cruz answered yes, and Lares replied, "Good, because we're going to kill this dude." Cruz thought Lares was serious based on the way he looked. There was no further discussion on how the murder was going to take place or who was going to pull the trigger. The men drove off over to an industrial area. Cervantes and Angel parked in their truck. In a separate car, Lares, Oaks, and Cruz parked on the opposite side and waited until Chacon arrived. When Chacon arrived, Lares got out of the car and had a conversation with Chacon. Lares walked back to Cruz and Oaks, opened the door, and made a gun shape with his hand toward Oaks without saying a word. Oaks then got out of the car, lifted up his shirt, and pulled out a gun, walking toward Chacon. Lares walked toward Chacon at the same time. Oaks shot Chacon multiple times. Around the time that the shooting had stopped, Cruz saw Lares go back to the back seat of Chacon's car and grab a bag. Cruz also said Lares put something to the back of Chacon's head, and Chacon's head flew forward and blood splattered out of his mouth or cheek. Oaks and Lares went back to the car, and the men drove away. The men stopped at a gas station near the Fairfield area. Cruz said saw Lares making phone calls. Cruz thought that Lares called Angel and told him they were on their way home and were going to dump the guns. The men left the guns in a dumpster at the gas station. Later, they examined what was inside the backpack taken from Chacon's car. The men found various electronics and some drug paraphernalia. Lares expressed disappointment that they had not found drugs. Lares told Cruz to contact Villar if anything should happen to Lares. Cervantes testified that he, Angel, Lares, and Lares' two little henchmen participated in Chacon's murder. Before the murder, the man had a meeting about what was going to happen. Lares told Cervantes, "We about to kill Kung Fu." Cervantes responded, "Hey, homie, I got nothing to say on that." Chacon had been doing a lot of fishy stuff. The men had heard that Chacon was in a relationship with a girl who worked with the FBI, and that there were issues with Chacon, saying that he was the boss of San Jose. Angel drove a truck and Cervantes sat in the passenger seat. Lares and Oaks, the actual shooter, were in a different car. The men parked and waited for Chacon to show up, and when he did, Lares went to speak to Chacon. Later, Oaks went out of the car and shot Chacon. After Chacon's murder sometime in September of 2012, Cervantes, Angel, and Lares went to Salinas. On the way back from Salinas, Lares said that he had got pulled as an NF member and that Fat Joe from Hayward also got pulled as an NF member as a sleeper. Only certain individuals know the status of those who are sleepers. At the time that Chacon was murdered, Bayar was a Norteño and had not yet been elevated to an NF member. Cervantes later dropped Lares at Bayar's house. Cervantes recalled that there was a conversation about how Bayar was stamped and the NF does not stamp people for doing nothing. Several weeks later, Lares came back to San Jose. Oaks, the person who had actually shot Chacon, had just gotten pulled as an NR member. Cervantes asked Lares about the decision to kill Chacon, and Lares mentioned that fat dude. Cervantes asked Lares who he was talking about, and Lares said, the fat dude, Joe from Hayward. Cervantes recalled that Lares mentioned Bayar's name and about how Bayar had said something to Lares about Chacon. Cervantes testified that he did not believe that Lares was taking orders from Bayar, rather, something that Bayar had said helped Lares make the final conclusion to move forward with the decision that had already been made. Cervantes understood that Bayar was functioning with Lares at around the same time Chacon was murdered. He believed that whatever Bayar said to Lares helped him make the final decision to kill Chacon. The investigation into Chacon's murder. San Jose Police Department Sergeant Jaime Jimenez was on call as a homicide detective on August 13th, 2012, when Chacon was killed. When Sergeant Jimenez arrived at the scene, Chacon's body was inside a Chevy Impala. Chacon had been shot multiple times, and officers found 2 ounces of methamphetamines underneath his pants. Sergeant Jimenez started his investigation by identifying Chacon's phone numbers, and he obtained search warrants for phone numbers associated with Chacon and several phone numbers that had been communicating with him right before he was killed. One of the numbers that Chacon had been communicating with was with an associate with the name Carl Gambino, which was an alias often used by Angel. Sergeant Livingston testified about some of the cell phone logs detailing calls between Lares, Chacon, Angel, and Bayar. According to Sergeant Livingston, Lares' phone logs between August 12th to August 14th indicated he had called Chacon several times. Lares also called Bayar. On August 12th at 8:51, Lares called Chacon. On August 13th at 9:05 in the morning, Lares called Bayar, and the phone calls lasted approximately 6 minutes. On August 13th at 10:40 a.m., Lares called Chacon again. After Lares called Chacon, he called Angel. Within 2 minutes of that call, Lares called Bayar again and had a 43-second conversation. Afterwards, there was another call made by Bayar to Lares. Lares then received 2 phone calls from Chacon. Subsequently, phone calls were made between Angel and Lares. There was also a 3-way call. At around 2:30 p.m., Lares made 2 phone calls to Bayar. At 11:10, Angel called Lares. The following day, on August 14th, there were several calls. Additional phone logs showed that Bayar, Lares, Chacon called each other in the weeks leading up to Chacon's murder.
Wow. You know, this whole case, bro, like I've talked to a lot of people over the last few years, and there's still no answers for what happened, bro. Apparently from everybody that I've talked to, Kung Fu was a C that was pulled by the federal faction. You know what I'm saying? I know in the early in these transcripts you hear about that dude Wicked Barrios. That's who he is. Wicked came out of Corcoran shoot with directives from Sombras to go out there and help establish the Santa Clara County Regiment. Okay, so that was his position. And if you notice in the beginning, there's a couple things, man, like we're going to give a perspective here. This is just what we got from the Court of Appeals. The first thing that stands out is there was already issue about leadership between the state and feds. Now, this hit I don't think it had anything to do with state or fed. You know what I mean? Because Barrios was no longer involved in the issue. He was already locked up doing his time. What I'm seeing from this situation, right, is two things. There was the attempted robbery where Kung Fu, a carnal, his family, his kids were there in the house that Angel and others were responsible for doing.
Right.
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing that I caught in this whole transcript is who was the main one communicating with Bird from Salinas? Bird at this time was up towards Red Bluff and Reading. That's where they arrested him. I know that for a fact. He was, you know what I mean? Even the henchmen he brought were from Reading and Red Bluff. So who was communicating with Bird during this whole time? Angel. Who was under investigation for issues out there in the street? Angel. Kung Fu. So it just almost seems like there was a little bit of communication going on between the dudes in San Jose with Bird up there in Reading, and where Bird, being a high-ranking NF member, someone had his ear to what was going on in the streets. Because there's no verification or proof of any of the other allegations about him being an informant or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? If you're out there doing your thing, I'm pretty sure you're going to be hesitant about pulling up to meet these guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? There was nothing that came out in the wash about him being that. So this almost looks like a personal ploy that happened in the beginning, you know what I mean, with individuals from San Jose that had conflict with what Kung Fu was doing. Now, I kind of question, like I said, this is just theories I'm throwing out there. I don't know what happened. It just raises a whole lot of red flags. And from people that I'm talking to out there that I know, they still want answers. Nobody's got a clear answer on what happened. But I'm reading this article, and I'm looking how things started to start. At first, Kung Fu was working with Angel. Then Angel started communicating with Wicked. Then Angel started to communicate with Bird. You know what I'm saying? It just seems like a whole situation. And Bird, we already know, was under the federal faction. He was over there reporting to Mad Dog at that time.
We shouldn't. I mean, who at that time? I mean, I know we can't say for sure because we weren't involved, but who at that time would have had the keys? Would you say in that situation?
Man,
That's
you know what I mean?
Call.
Well, you know, Bird already outranked everybody at that time that was
That's
out
what
there.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
Him and Happy were working together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, but the whole part, I mean, you know, who gave the authority? Okay, if Kung Fu came out there with federal directions to establish a regiment, who made that call to whack Kung Fu, and what were the grounds? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like I said, I don't know.
But Kung Fu was a made member.
Well, that was the other thing. Look who they used to kill him. They used to do that was a Northerner.
They don't care about that, really. They just get the job done nowadays.
Yeah, but you know what? You had two dudes that you sanctioned their status. One dude that was there at that time, you sanctioned his status as a C a couple months later. Wouldn't you think that would be the one that's supposed to do the hit then, to make his bones? I mean, yeah. And the dude that did it, you guys pull him as an NR member. If this was a sanctioned hit, right? If it was sanctioned, wouldn't you think that the dude that pulled the trigger, the Northerner, would have bypassed all other recruiting process and been made a C at that time? I think so. You know what I mean? He proved his point.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's hard about these things is because you never know those little type of details, man. Because, bro, first of all, nobody was made an NR member. The NR wasn't even around no more.
Yeah.
I mean, let's clarify that off the gate. For all the people wondering, they're like, well, I thought the NR got disbanded in 97. That is correct. This is just used terminology, man. He became an N soldado, basically. You know what I mean? And as far as making your bones, bro, I mean, yeah, that's the first. Do you want to sacrifice? The thing is, man, you could look at it like this too. From a game plan, do you want to possibly sacrifice losing an NF member? Or are you going to sacrifice a little Norteño if something goes wrong? You never know what they're thinking and their philosophy is behind anything, man. You don't know if drug use is involved. We don't know all these little details. But one thing, another thing that stands out real quick, Flacco, and then I'll shut my mouth. Red Bluff. We were just talking about the infiltration of these communities that have never been any kind of strongholds, the Reddings, the Ukiahs, the Red Bluffs, the Susanvilles, the damn Portervilles, whatever the case might be. No, not Porterville, but I'm just thinking of stuff. Word gets around. You know what I mean? There could be nothing going on in any of these small towns. One of these individuals' land, that place is no longer a lame spot.
Yeah.
Now then people are seasoned. It takes a couple weeks, bro, to sit people down to explain to how things go. It's not that hard. Now, it won't be functioning up to par. It's never going to be Salinas. You know what I mean? It's never going to be Watsonville. It's never going to be San Jose. That's not going to happen. Not for decades and decades and generations. But it went from a place with nothing to now all of a sudden these dudes met this guy and now we're going to strive. We want to be real homeboys like them homeboys from them cities.
You know, like I said, the interesting part about this whole thing was in the beginning, it talks about the state vet issue already starting to develop. You know what I mean? But the one that was involved in having this dude whacked was loyal to the Fed faction, as well as the dude that was involved was functioning with Kung Fu. So when I look at it, man, like if I seriously, okay, look, I try to look at things with a, you know, analytical and open perspective. And I'm going to pose this question to you. With Kung Fu being eliminated out there, who benefited the most?
I don't know.
Who got their status stamped a couple months later and then was running San Jose? Angel, YB.
True.
You know what I mean? Who was already having issues because he elected to have the dudes.
Yeah, he definitely benefited the most. But was that the intent at the time?
We don't know.
That's why I had trouble answering that one.
That's the problem with it, man. Is you can draw all kinds of this is why it's an open perspective, man. And there's still like questions about this whole situation because a lot of homeboys respected this individual, Kung Fu. I haven't really heard anything negative regarding him. It just seems like there was a power struggle, a conflict going on out there in the streets because, I mean, even the Bird, I mean, that's the funny thing was Bird was trying to find verification if dude was an informant. And then, 6 hours later, you decide to have him whacked? And then afterwards, you're going through the bag hoping there's some dope and money in there. You know what I'm saying? That's just a red flag for me. I mean, what the hell was really going on, man? What was the real motive behind what happened?
Yeah, I mean, could it be a little thing about power? Of course. Could it be that they righteously felt some dude was led astray and talking to people he shouldn't have talked to? That would be speculation. You know what I mean? I'm sure it will. It comes out eventually. You know, them people who are involved, they know. Yeah. You know, but I mean, does the investigators know? Who knows? Does the organization as a whole know what they were really thinking? You never know. You never know what was said. You know, could there actually have been permission from other people as well? Man, we don't know.
Yeah, that's the question. But like what I'm saying is that happened so fast. If you listen to the transcripts, he was on a phone call saying, I'm looking into this. And next thing you know, you're whacking him. You know what I'm saying? I don't think with the magnitude of individuals that were out there, Happy, Berg, Chente, all these other C's that were out there around this time. I think Chente was out. He may have been locked up, man. But there was a lot of active C's out there. I don't think Kung Fu would go out there talking about, I'm here under the federal regiment to establish a federal regiment in San Jose. I don't think he would do that unless he had the clearance and authority to do so. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. But
and even if he was, right? Okay. You know, all that, well, the state's a state, the Fed's a Fed. I've been out there functioning in San Jose where there's been about 5 or 6 regiments operating in one area, bro. That's not uncommon because it's such a big area, man. And there's a whole lot of C's out there sometimes at one time or another. I've been out there where there's been about 7 or 8 C's out there in the streets. And everybody either is working together, you have 2 C's working together, you have about 4 or 5 different regiments. They have all these different foot soldiers going on out there. So I don't see where the issue would have been having 2 individuals out there at that time doing their thing. I mean, they've been able to coexist, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, this whole, you know, was about him, you know what I mean, pushing the issue about being the boss of San Jose or whether he was an informant and this and that. We don't know the reasons. There's a whole lot of questions that you look just reading the transcripts that make you wonder, okay, what really happened here? I mean, I see red flags all throughout it, man. It's common sense, man. And just knowing some of the individuals involved, you know what I mean? There ain't really nothing positive I can say about YB Angel. You know what I mean? I know the dude. His brother, solid. Him, I really can't say nothing positive, man. No disrespect to the dude. You know what I mean? I think, you know what I mean? He was in a position to where he could get elevated at that time. Sometimes they recruit people based upon the need. You know what I'm saying? And this isn't the first time. Like, people think that maybe this is the beginning stages, that there was issues between the state and Fed, man. I heard 6 years before this issue, they were already starting to have issues with a couple of individuals coming out. One of them being Green Eyes from the City, who came out, where there was individuals who had already paroled from the state that got recruited up there under some of the C's that were in the state. They came out to the streets and had already started to establish their own regiments out there around 2005 and 2006. Because they recruited a whole bunch of youngsters around that time because it was on a need-for-need basis. Like, I'm not going to name all the names, but they all got recruited around the same time as Bubbles did from Hanford. There was about 4 or 5 of them that got recruited around that time, because all on the basis of what this individual told me, I just talked to him on the phone yesterday, was based on the fact of them proing to the streets. They were all young. There was a filter, he said, that came out afterwards that Conejo wrote that said, never again will they ever recruit young C's like this ever again, because I guess they just went out there and they just tore shit up. And he said that the issue that they had around that time, and this is in all kinds of areas from the East Bay, San Fran, out there to Sonoma County, Napa County, out to Solano County. The issue that they had is that they already established everything that they were told by the carnales up there in the Bay. You know what I mean? But you had dudes that already started to come out the feds that wanted them to follow suit. Therefore, there was already starting to be a conflict going on out there between the Fed and state, because he just told me that he's like, we've already done what was instructed of us to do. You're not going to come out here and tell us, just because you're under the federal faction, tell us what we need to be doing, because we're doing what we were told to do. We've already established these resources. And then he said from there, it became a power struggle at that time, where they started getting directives to hit each other out there in the streets. And he said that's part of the reasons why he walked away as a C, was based upon that he didn't sign up to start killing his own people. So all these struggles you're seeing as far as people reporting to the Bay and the feds, this wasn't just the first incident as far as with Wicked and Kung Fu at the same time. This had been going on years previously, because some people were aligning with the feds and some people were aligning to the state. And what was going on is those that were aligning with the state were coming out there and they were starting to establish their resources. Some started working with people that were coming out from the feds, others didn't. So it started to become a conflict of interest. So all this shit started to build up from what I gather. He ended up falling out in around 2010, but he gave me the whole the whole format of what was going on. The directives that were coming up from the Bay, you know what I mean? Like, they get in the way, whack them. That was the solution. So, you know, it's kind of crazy that the all you got to do is take from this, man, is in one way or form or fashion, that this is basically a power struggle. It was basically a power play move, and someone was going to benefit from it. That's what I take from this whole scenario, man. That's just my perspective. Am I right? I don't know. But I can read between the lines. Just reading some of the comments and statements and the timeline of how things developed, and talking to people out in the streets, I could tell that someone had ulterior motive in having this dude hit, without a doubt.
I agree with what you're saying 100%. The only thing that troubles me is the why. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I agree that was ultimately the reason that got this individual, you know, removed from existence. But
look at the people
things
that
would have naturally developed for other people to prosper and upgrade their statuses and their responsibilities without that action. Because even if you do that, if that dude seems to be, you know, temporarily in your way to what you're trying to do, if you get rid of him, in 3 weeks, they could send somebody out to take your status anyway.
Yeah.
Everything is temporary, bro. You might be the regiment commander. You might be the RSD. You might be whatever the hell title you have. That's on a thin line. That's a day-to-day thing, man. Anytime a letter could come, a directive could come, and they want to, not even that you messed up, but maybe they want to go in a different direction. Maybe they think this individual may be more qualified or is more deserving of this title than you. all the power struggles, man, except at the very, very, very top, are kind of frivolous because at the end of the day, they're extremely temporary, bro. I mean, we know it. You know, I could be running San Quentin, you know, category 2, and then somebody else shows up. Now I have no power whatsoever except what that individual is willing to give me, and vice versa. A category 1, there could be no NF members in Quentin. NF member automatically from East Block at the time controls all of San Quentin. I show up, man, you just lost everything. And look, things like that, they breed animosity as well. I've seen it happen with people older than me that I just happen to be higher than them and come over and take over. And they're just like, what kind of shit is this? And I get it. I understand. But the thing is, it shouldn't be about ego or things of that nature, man. It's about the overall objective. It doesn't matter who's fulfilling it as long as the objective is being at least sought after. So all the shit's temporary. When people get whacked behind shit, unless I really know why, it still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, Steve, it's just the opinion. I think my opinion kind of swayed because I know one of the individuals involved. I know a couple of the individuals involved. You know what I mean? And just knowing how the individual was back then. Yeah, he worked under me before. Right. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And not only that, man, knowing his actions afterwards, once he got his status stamped, it kind of makes me question, like, okay, you know what I mean? I'm here. I hear things. I keep my ear to what's going on, man. So, you know, my opinion on it may be biased, but at the same time, I'm not stupid. You could read between the lines on what happened. You know what I'm saying?
At the same time, your opinion has experience with the individual involved, so that makes it more valid thing.
It just you know,
like I can't predict because I don't know nothing about this dude. Never seen him, never even heard of him. You have firsthand dealings with, man, so you can kind of guess his mentality, his direction, all those kind of things. I mean, will it be 100%? No, but it's an educated guess.
Bird is all the way up north. He's in Red Bluff. Yeah. That's where he got arrested on whole separate charges. When he got indicted with Happy and them, he was living in Red Bluff, okay? He was in communication with one or two individuals. One person in this thing was in Hayward. The other person was in San Jose at that time, okay? One of the persons that was in San Jose had issues with a dude that got smacked. For a while, they were working together. It says it right there in the timeline, and that they were both pushing the federal agenda. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Yep. At the same token, it also says in that timeline that the individual was responsible because he had a pad hit where there were kids involved, NF members' kids. That right there is enough to get you green lit. Next thing you know, there's all kinds of communications going up to Bird, and Bird's in communication with this one person right here that has this conflict that's under investigation basically for his actions. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what happened and where Bird was getting all this information from. Because I doubt Bird was in contact with everybody in San Jose Regiment. I highly doubt that. And knowing who this person's brother is over here, it's plain as day what happened here, bro. I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong. We don't know the case factors behind that because maybe there's more to it. But I see what happened here. And that's just
the only reason that we put these disclaimers and stuff is because we do not have firsthand knowledge.
We did not have firsthand knowledge.
Perspectives that, man, hey, we've been there. We know.
But just, you know what I mean? You get where I'm coming from on this? I mean, that's just a personal perspective. I could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, and
yeah, there's a 1% chance or 0.7% chance or something.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for that, bro.
Hey, I mean, I'm just being honest, bro. I mean,
yeah. You know,
hey, I might not. Hey, if I read a sentence in Spanish and I understand 9 out of the 10 words, if I don't understand that 10th word, I still know what the sentence means.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
you know, I do know this, right? That out there, people are pissed off about it. They never got the answers for it. But, you know, like I said, that's part of politics. And this isn't the first time there's been a hit where everybody questions it as being wrong.
Right.
Whether it was sanctioned from the higher ups, we don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Could have been a multitude of reasons.
Yes, it could have been other reasons why he was out there and this happened. I mean, it may have been a self-justified. It may have, you know what I mean? It's just the only part that confused me is the part where within like 6 to 12 hours, he went from, okay, I'm looking at this dude being an informant to now wanting to have him hit. Yeah. And then the first thing he was worried about was what was in the bag. You know?
I agree with you, Flacco. Anyway, YouTube, man, That was an interesting story, you know, about the way things can go down for any reason at any time in this lifestyle. In any lifestyle, we're not pointing out no group. This is a scene that could play out in any movie, and we'll call the movie these different organizations. This scene could play out in any one of these movies, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about that, man. And it's the people you're riding with that are sitting right next to you, where you're supposed to be able to eat your burger while you're in the car. They're under their hoodie, they're pointing something at you. Use your head. It's your boy Rojo, man. I'll be at you live tonight. Flacco helped me out last night. I was busy doing some personal things. So I will be there, and we'll give you guys a good show. Hope you had a good Monday, man, enjoying this holiday season, getting back to work. And think about what we tell you, man, because we're not telling you to hate on nobody or spread poison, like they like to say. We're just looking out for you guys, man, as a whole. Be careful with the decisions you make, no matter what they are. Go for it, don't go for it. At the end of the day, you're going to do what you're going to do. But have the information about anything you're going to do before you sign up for it. It doesn't matter what it is. This, regular life, a new job, a new relationship. It doesn't matter. Inform yourself, man. Think things through. There's all kinds of things that appear out of nowhere that weren't projected on your first viewing. So,
and one more thing, Rojo.
Yeah.
Everybody separate the case facts of what we read according to people's testimonies and law enforcement's, you know what I mean, reports from what our perspective is. Our perspective may not be right. So I just want to acknowledge that, man. This is just, you know what I mean, me putting my 2 cents in and what I'm evaluating. And I think I have the intelligence enough and been around the game long enough to analyze situations and see what happens, because we were involved in that shit. We know exactly how everything plays out, man. We know about the dirty politics. We know about the selfishness, the disloyalty and betrayal. It happens. You know what I mean? So bear in mind, though, do take heed to what I'm saying on that.
Yeah, it happens way more than you guys even hear about, man. We just share the stories with you that make the headlines. We know all kinds of stuff that we don't speak on, but hey, think about what we're telling you guys. Have a good Monday. We'll holler at you guys later. Appreciate y'all.